Yo, what's going on guys? Rhys here from Stoic Pool, and in this video we're going to be designing our NFT in Aseprite. Let's get into it. Right guys, so this is part 2 of a 1, 2, 3, 4, probably like 5 or 6 part series on creating NFTs on Cardano and then finding a way to distribute them to delegators to the stake pool. So in this video we're going to be designing the NFT and we're going to be using a bit of software called Aseprite, which is basically like a pixel art software. So pixel art, yeah, most people probably know what pixel art is by now. It's quite popular with NFTs for some reason. I don't know why. I guess it's because it's quite simple. I love the kind of minimalist kind of simplicity of it. It creates its own kind of challenges, which is quite fun. But we're not going to worry about that right now. We're just going to dive straight in. So in Aseprite, I basically got like a simple palette together, and I made like a 64 by 64 square. Picked like a simple pencil tool, made a coin size. So the good thing about Aseprite is you can just go for a circle, like a circle brush, and because it's you can go big enough so that it just creates the coin shape straight away. And I needed it to be reasonably large with enough space to do the Cardano kind of pattern on it, get that logo right. So I went for a 56 pixel circle. That gives me a little bit of space on the borders to do like a black outline. It gives me plenty of space to work inside. So first I just smash out the outline just so it's there and you can kind of see the single unit, because it's kind of confusing sometimes with pixels because it's just squares. You kind of lose the perspective which you'd get from having like a solid shape. And then I drew a nice little grid on it so that I had a way of mapping all the circles in the Cardano logo onto the coin. I just went for like a completely different color to anything that I'd be using, and then I picked the darkest or like a mid shade that I would use for the actual logo, and I went round and kind of I started with just the big circles and then I kind of worked my way out. For the smallest, most outer little circles on the Cardano logo were a bit more challenging, because when pixel art obviously working as a grid means that to have everything patterned and balanced, like symmetrical, you needed to have an even number of pixels, and then you had this problem when you get to the outermost circles of the Cardano logo where they're single dots. And so it was quite difficult to work with and fix the shading in. But once I kind of had that, I mean, I adjust it throughout the design, but once I kind of had that mapped out, it was a lot easier to work with. And generally speaking, what I did is I decided to kind of have one being the shadow of it and then one being the highlight of it. So it has 2 pixels to be able to do the outermost circle. And it meant that I could work with the symmetry of the entire coin. And so it matched with the grid without it looking like it was out of place or too big or just like strange. And one thing that you'll find with pixel art is because it's so minimal, sometimes you need to have you need to kind of suggest things rather than actually making them, and that's one of the beauties of pixel art. One of the things that I really kind of love about it is the kind of abstract kind of suggestion of the design and how it works. It makes creating something a bit more interesting than just drawing it out. So I kind of started getting through the circle and I realized that the coin had to be a little bit bigger. So I went round the outside and just kind of redrew the edge. I could have just made a thing and just done the next size up, but I didn't want to lose the pattern that I'd already created because I needed to work with it and make sure it fitted nice. So I did that. Then I came through and started putting the highlight shade on all the circles so that I can figure out how to do the darkness and blend into the light. And initially it wasn't my plan to have like a kind of trim and like a depth element to it, but it kind of worked with the pattern, and it was lucky actually how it worked out. It enabled me to have the highlight, and it enabled me to have multiple layers of shading between, and that adds a really nice like extra layer of detail which otherwise would kind of be lost on pixel art. So it worked really nicely. I was quite happy with that. So the next stage then was to kind of put the trim around the coin. So I kind of based it on like, I'm looking for a coin. Don't have coins anymore, do we? So this is a penny. So with coins, they tend to have like a little edge to them, like an inside border. And so I wanted to actually get that in NFT, so it looked more realistic. And what that actually enables you to do is have like an opposite shade, so it looks like it goes in and adds a bit of depth to the token, to the coin, sorry, rather than just having it as a flat thing and it looks like what am I thinking? I'm thinking of tiddlywinks. It looks like one of those just little plastic discs rather than an actual coin. Like that little detail makes a massive difference, which you'll see at the end. So I went round, I kind of marked it all out, and there were some conflicting pixels in there, which meant I had to reshape where the outer circles of the Cardano logo went, like these ones. I had to remap where these went so that I could get the edge in. I wanted to do the actual Stoic logo, like the edges like this, but I just didn't have the space. And I didn't want to spend too much time on this because it was like 11 o'clock at night when I was doing it. But that was basically how it went. So once I got that edge in, just in one basic color, I then went back and did the highlight. So it's obviously the opposite side of the coin for the highlight, because the other stuff is like sticking out and then the coin kind of dishes in. All right, so you need to make sure that you highlight it in the right way, otherwise it'll look like it goes the other way, it comes out rather than going into the coin. So just bear that in mind if you ever do something like this. And then the next level then is to add that kind of mid shade through, and this just adds another dynamic where it kind of creates a better lighting kind of effect and look to make the thing more realistic. And that's really important as well if you're doing things, and that's why it's good if you're doing something like this to have multiple layers of shading, because if you just have the base color and then a highlight and then a shadow, you're very limited with a 3-color palette. Whereas with a 4-color palette, like you can add the extra level of depth and detail into it, which otherwise you can't achieve. And I kind of understand this intrinsically from when I used to do graffiti when I was a bit younger, because I think, again, with graffiti you tend to work with a very limited palette, because for a start there aren't that many color options, but then also you need to add as much detail as possible with like a handful of colors, so like a 4-color palette or something. So this kind of makes sense as well to me, so it was very easy to understand that needed to be done. And then one really important thing about your pixel art as well is you always got to be zooming in and zooming out, because it's very easy to get lost in squares with pixel art, but if you zoom out you can see what it actually looks like to the real, when you just glance at it, and that's where it's actually important. Like pixel art isn't important, like the individual squares, because it's so abstract and suggestive rather than being like realistic. You've got to look at it from the outside perspective so your brain can kind of figure out what all the squares are up to and make it a real thing, rather than just zooming through and looking at like a grid, because it just doesn't make sense to your brain all the time. So zooming in and out all the time whilst you're designing it and checking, you check by zooming out and then you zoom back into work and then you zoom back out to check and zoom back into work. So then the last thing, once I had the actual coin design, I realized that I actually needed to have something else. Well, I didn't have to, but I wanted to. I wanted something that you could display on your phone, so I wanted it to have a bit more height to it, rather than just being a square and just having the coin, because it didn't really mean anything. So I wanted to do like a little plaque, and I was thinking like old games, like old Game Boy games and stuff, when it had like a little plaque of something and it'd have a little shimmer on it and it would have the thing. And then I decided that I wanted it to look more like the coin itself. So it's like a plaque saying 100th for the 100th block. So I went about designing that. Now this was harder than doing the coin, because actually designing the text and how it was going to look was more complicated, because I had so many options for it and I could literally do whatever I want. So I spent a bit of time doing just fiddling around with shapes and kind of working out where it was going to go and how big it needed to be. But once I had that in my head, it kind of made sense. The only difficult thing then was getting the shading right, and wasn't going to add any glistening bits or something to make it look shiny or anything, and then matching the highlights and the shadows to the coin itself, so that it looked like a whole thing, rather than two separate bits of pixels, basically. But I think it turned out all right in the end. Once I got the shadow all kind of fixed in right, I just went around the edge, put that black line in to make it look like a single unit, and then I figured out how to best position it within within the space that the canvas size basically that I'd created for it. I tried to add in a little background. I kind of tested it with a bunch of things, and that was literally it, guys. That I was kind of, once I was happy with it and I had the background in, basically the next stage is to make multiple. So instead of just having one design and one color, you kind of need to have, or I wanted to have, you don't need to do this, but a lot of NFTs, which personally I think is a bit of a cop-out, but that's a different conversation. But one of the things that happens a lot with NFTs is you have different levels of rarity, just like collectible old Pokemon cards and trading cards and stuff like that. So a lot of the times people make multiple versions or multiple layers of stuff to have slightly rarer looking NFTs, and they can kind of be auto-generated, which is a bit of another topic. It's actually, it seems very simple, and I say it's a bit of a cop-out. It's actually very difficult to put together properly so that it all matches well, and it's a lot of work on the front end, but it enables you to use algorithms to just switch out certain items and make certain ones rarer. So instead of having to have a fixed design, you can have variations, which makes it a bit more interesting. It gives you a reason to mint multiple of a token as well, or multiple tokens, because obviously they're all unique. And and that's about it. So I decided to do like 5 different colors, basically. So 5 different designs, but just in different colors on different themes. And from that, I'll then make one unique, one of a kind, and then I'll have a couple that go through multiple. So you can have like, this one's got a 10% chance of turning up, this one's got a 1% chance, this one's got an 80% chance, or however I decide to do it based on that. But like 5 to 10 different variations of different colors and stuff, and I'll kind of go through that in the next video so that you can see how that works. All right, but guys, if you're designing NFTs or if you're working with pixel art like this, hopefully this has given you an idea about the process to go through. Have fun making NFTs, guys. Have fun. I'm going to do a couple of these, like now that I've kind of going through the process. Once I'm going to do one for Stoic's first birthday. I'm going to do other stuff just as little collectible things to do for the delegators, because I do enjoy actually doing this, and it is kind of fun. And I put off doing it because I haven't wanted to just do stuff for the sake of it, like just to sell art, you know what I mean? Like I have other things to do basically, and it's a lot to go through just to almost create something for the sake of making collectible NFTs. I didn't have the incentive to do it, I didn't have the need to do it, or the desire really. But yeah, I have had loads of fun doing this. All right, that's it for this video, guys. Don't forget to check out video 3, which we're going to go through on doing different colors and changing the colors of them so that we make different levels of rarity for the NFTs. If you're not already, obviously go to Stoic Pool and Delegate. Right guys, that's it for this video. So this is how I designed the NFT and how you can go about it too, using Aseprite to make your pixel art. There are other options, like you can have multiple frames, but that's for a different conversation. In the next video, we're going to go about changing the colors and kind of making different versions of the image so we can have different levels of rarity and kind of collector's versions of the items. Otherwise, guys, that's it for this video. If you like what you've seen, as always, give us a like, subscribe for more Stoic and Cardano videos every week. Leave any questions or comments you got in the box below. I'll put a little link in there for Aseprite as well if you're interested in getting your hands on it and kind of dabbling with some pixel art. Otherwise, guys, if you're not already, delegate to Stoic. We're actively minting blocks, and we'd love to have you on the team. And otherwise, I'll catch up with you in the next video. See you then.